It's 12 o'clock in Frisco, Texas, and it's time for Smoker Broker Radio with Robert Mesh, a.k.a. the Smoker Broker. Robert is the owner of Small World Realty and has employed hundreds of real estate agents in his 17-year career. He has instructed and mentored over 10,000 real estate agents at the highly acclaimed Champions School of Real Estate and is considered an expert in Texas residential realty. Robert is also an advocate of true entrepreneurial spirit and has helped many to transition from corporate America into the world of self-employment. And now live from the studio to your world, the Smoker Broker.
Hey, welcome to Smoker Broker. I'm Robert Mesh, and I am the Smoker Broker. We are not a vape shop. We are not a weed shop. I am actually a guy that does barbecue and real estate. That's where that name came from. Lots of people know it, especially in the state of Texas. We are talking to you live on KVGI Media, coast to coast, sometimes even across the country. We get a few people that listen in. Happy Thursday to everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. More positive flows, more things are getting better. Things are opening up, loosening up. Whether you agree with it or not, it's a fact. It's opening up. We're moving forward. This is probably as close to, a new normal that we've had in at least 9 to 10 weeks, starting this week, where some of the restaurants have eased up, opened up, more businesses are going out. It's obvious that people have a little bit more of a comfort level with what's going on. That doesn't mean anything's better about the virus itself, but at least it means there's an effort being placed forward that lets us try to make an attempt to make some type of a normal life out of this. It's going to be weird for the next 6 months to a year for sure, especially when you talk about large groups and things as such. But in the end, we're going to be able to move forward. We're going to try to return to some type of normalcy. And I think everybody would say today they feel a little bit better today than they did a couple of months ago. I mean, I'm not saying they're celebrating. They're certainly not outside shooting fireworks, but I think they feel a little more comfortable. Or I guess maybe even the better word is acceptant. Accepting of what's happened, accepting of where we are and what we're doing. And in the end, it's a little bit of a return to, hey, look, life moves on. We're very resilient people. We try to figure out a way to conquer things, move forward, do the best we can. And that is what Americans do best. They move past terrible things that have happened. We've had horrible things that have happened in our past, but we always overcome them. We always move forward. And that's what's kind of fun about real estate too. Real estate is very resilient. It always moves on. It doesn't die. It can't be replaced. You can't bring in a computer model to replace it. The iBuyers have struggled greatly. You look at people like Zillow, people like Opendoor. 3 years ago, they're sitting there telling everybody that they're going to replace real estate. They're the first biggest chance ever to replace real estate. And 3 years later, they are sitting down in the game that they created. They can't even buy right now because they struggle so much with the financial side and they can't overcome such a market. But real estate in general, traditional real estate, moves on. People always continue to relocate. People always continue to, whether they have divorces or not, people always continue to have bigger families, smaller families, death, everything, the horrible things, real estate always is involved. It moves on. It is resilient. It doesn't stop. So that's one of the great things about what we do, our industry. It's why I'm always so passionate about it. And I love talking about it. I love this show today. It's funny. I went back and I looked at a lot of these shows that we've done. We haven't done negotiation strategy in a long time. Now, this gets kind of crossovered with when we do contracts because we have some of these discussions in contracts, but we haven't had a show in a while where we talk directly about the strategy we use when we're going through some of these things. So you're going to like the show today. It's always built for people who are new agents. It's good for up and coming agents. It's good for traditional agents. And it's always good for the general public. And I constantly tell everybody that, if you're a real estate agent, you should pass the show on to a client, especially, if they're on one side or the other, so they understand how these things are put together. So today's show, that's going to be a good one. Now, I got some of my top guys on today because if I'm going to talk negotiations, I'm going to make sure that I bring on a lot of my crew. Now, I've got a lot of co-hosts that work with us, and they're all just as important. I can't bring everybody on. But when we go through and have this type of conversation, it is good to have some of my most senior people on with me. I've got am I right? Deb McNeil on my side over here out of Fort Worth, Texas. Deb, how are you today?
I am great.
Good. It's always good to see your face out there.
Nice to see you too.
Always have such a, always ready to go. Deb serves the Fort Worth area, but she will go throughout the Dallas-Fort Worth area. It's not like she's just confined, but she is by far one of our strongest and most senior agents on the west side of town. So we always encourage anybody out there. And Deb has a lot of people who listen to her on the show. She pushes the feed out, and that's how she should use the show. But her clients that do watch and the people that she passes it on to, they should be very fortunate because they're dealing with someone who's been in this industry for quite some time. She has spoken with me for the last 10 years on almost everything that she's done. Believe me, she is very skilled in how to handle real estate more than anybody else out there. So really, it's great and very fortunate if you are a client that watches to have her. So Deb, always good to have you.
Thank you.
Alan Pace, how are you, buddy?
Good, man. How you be?
Good. It's good to see you, man. Yeah, Alan, same entry as Deb, almost the exact same time frame. And Alan's out of the Flower Mound area, but Alan will tell you he'll be more descriptive than Deb. He'll go anywhere. Alan, he literally would drive probably 5 hours or so if there was a commission in it. Deb,
Well, there's only 20 people on a jet right now, so it's really easy.
I believe it. Alan, too, is a very seasoned agent. He knows what he's doing. He's a no BS type of guy. His clients are very fortunate to have him. He's probably one of my most sincere and genuine agents, even if it's not the most positive spin. He'll just tell it to you. He's like that with me, too. Deb is as well. Sometimes it's best to have some of your stronger agents because they're not afraid to tell you the truth about things, even if they don't agree with you. These three people on this particular show are the best at telling me, I don't necessarily like the way you did that, which I like to have them on. They are very descriptive. My brother will tell you, too, executive at a large company, and he will tell you that it's always good to have your best devil's advocate on your teams because you do not want people to always just sit there and go, oh, yeah, you're right, because you're not always right. None of us are. And these three are the best at it. All right, my final guy down there, let's see this way. Brent Holberg. He doesn't look at me. He's been doing it a long time too. It's probably because he has a real eerie type of face or something. He's not, very
I'm just recovering from Cinco de Mayo.
that backdrop you had the other day was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So we're on our team call the other day. And we've had some really interesting backdrops in the Zoom calls. Brent has a bunch of Brent, what do you call those guys that play?
There's a mariachi band behind me.
Yeah, the mariachi guys, and they're actually playing on the background. It was hilarious. That's the best.
It was Cinco de Mayo.
That's right.
It was. Yeah. I've seen tons of them. That was the best one by far. Having the Cinco de Mayo guys actually playing in the background. Fantastic. So Brent's out of the McKinney area, but he too will go just about anywhere in North Texas. He is also a senior guy in our crew, been with us a long time. He knows what he's doing. His clients, too, are very fortunate to have him. I mean, all of these guys that are on the show are well vetted to make sure they know what they're talking about. They make the show better. Really, the show can only go so far with me. It gets boring to hear me talk all the time.
Yep.
And they typically will bring up things that I didn't think about on the show. And that's why the show is so fun, is that it is unscripted and we go many different directions that are all on topic, but every bit of it's useful. I mean, again, I'm biased towards the show, but anybody who's up and coming that really needs to understand more, I don't know why you wouldn't watch the show. It's just extra for you every single week. So Brent, good to have you too, buddy. Good to have everybody. This is a good conversation in your core competence. Each of you on this call know very well what we're talking about. And I think it's going to be real fun for everybody that's on today to be able to see how we go through these things and analyze. And, even existing agents, even myself, I sometimes learn they might say something. I'm like, I didn't know that. I didn't know you guys were doing that now. So it's just as productive for me as it is for anybody else as well. So let's get into it. Now, of course, we do go across from coast to coast, and we are live without limits on KBGI, but a lot of times we focus on Texas real estate because that is our core audience, Texas real estate. Now, all contracts throughout the country are going to have, similar contracts in here, but we're going to talk specifically to the state of Texas. But no matter where you're at, you still should get something out of it. Now, and before I forget too, and I should say this a couple of times in the show, I want to make sure I thank our sponsor today, Mr. Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections. Martin is, we in the SWR group at Keller Williams, we are one of the larger teams in the country, and we have several vendors that we push out to our clients. And we don't want our clients to have one vendor because we want them to have a choice. But in our group, there's no doubt that Martin Cooley is our premier choice when it comes to home inspection. And there's many reasons for that. One, he's been doing it for a long time. Two, his bedside manner is incredible. He's very good about telling someone the goods and the bads without freaking them out. There's a lot of inspectors out there that just do CYA on everything they do. They sit there and I don't even know why we had them, because they're just covering themselves, versus point blank having some guts and saying, look, per the state, that's not the way it should be, but this is not as big of a problem as you think. And that's one thing that he does very well. He does a lot of things very well, but that's one thing I sincerely like about him. Another thing from an agent standpoint, because we have a lot of agents that watch this show, he's very good about on his report. I review a lot of the reports in my team, and those reports are long. They're like 50 to 60 pages, and it just irritates me. You have to go through every one of them. One of the things that he does very well is his front summary has blue and red indicators, and the red indicators are usually the ones that are telling me, hey, look, that's probably something I need to look a bit closer at, and it might be an issue. I don't always say the red is a concern, but most of the time I look there more carefully, and it really keeps me from having to watch or read through the whole report. So if you ever want to catch up with Martin in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, that number is 817-401-3240. And that's 817-401-3240. If you are in any of the areas of the state of Texas that we serve, of course, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and even the folks that are out in West, just let us know if you need that. You can put something in our chat, or you can always contact us. So, I'm always easy to get in touch with. My email is very simple, smokerbroker@kw.com, and we'll point you in the right direction if there are those areas. Martin, thank you for always being a great sponsor and being a great partner with us. We enjoy having you, and you are a very integral part of what we do at SWR. Okay, back into the contract. So when you get into contracts, we'll just start off with the bang. We'll start with the biggest one. We'll talk about when we're looking at what sales price are we going to put in, what type of offer are we going to put in. Now, it's funny, contrary to popular belief, a lot of people think the most important part of the contract when it comes to negotiation is the sales price. And I would say that's probably true, but most people would argue it's the terms. It's the terms of the contract that are most important. This entire document is filled with terms, and some of them are more favorable to some people than others, depending on what they're doing. So don't always assume that price is the number one reason somebody sells their house, or that's the reason they took an offer. I'll tell you it's a big part of it, but it's not the main one. So
It's not.
how about that? Get in there, Dad. Tell me.
I was going to say it's not uncommon for a seller to choose an offer in a multiple offer situation. That offer is not the highest one, but maybe it has a stronger loan situation, or
See, that's why we bring them on, because that's exactly what I'm talking about. If you really want to talk about the importance of when price is not the number one issue, multiple offers would be the absolute right answer, because in a lot of times in the multiple offer situation, all of the prices are high, and all of them are like within $1,000 or $2,000 possibly, but they might have $5,000 to $10,000 worth of value in some of the other things that we're going to talk about. So that's a great point, is that the multiple offer situation really draws out when is something, material is the most important, is price the most important. So that's a great comment.
And the opposite of that is if you don't get any offers, maybe you are priced too high.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's right.
It goes both ways, right? I mean, it can be determined and understood by the way these things are coming in and what we're looking at. So that's absolutely correct. So in most offers anywhere in the country, you're really looking at three important parts. You're looking at the cash component, which is their down payment. You're looking at their amount they're going to finance, and you add those two together and you're getting to what your offer price is. A quick note that continues to be a constant confusion, especially with the new agents out there. So we're trying to do a better job of doing takeaways on the show. Here's a good takeaway if you're a new agent. I get this all the time. I specialize in all type of agents, but especially in new agents as well. It's amazing to me how many agents, when they do their first contract, the first thing they say is, hey, I don't know where the form is for the offer. All I can see is the contract. I got news for you. They're both the same thing, okay? The contract and the offer, it's the same document. What you need to understand is it's not an official contract until both parties have signed it. When you first create it, it is an offer. So this, for those of you who can see this in the state of Texas, that is the offer. It's the contract once it's eventually signed. But a lot of people ask me that question when they're new. So for our new guys out there, understand the offer is actually the contract, the document that you get off of the zip forms. That is the actual document, but it's not a contract until we've had everybody sign. Okay, so we get that a lot. All right, let's look at some negotiation parts of this contract. So when it comes to down payment, Brent, what's the obvious on a down payment as far as from a negotiating standpoint if we want our offer to stand out? What is the most common sense answer to that?
I mean, the more cash you put down, the more secure it's going to look. You're not
Okay. And if we have more cash down, what is the assumption that we're making that if someone's putting more cash down,
they can afford the house. You know,
they can afford the house. Maybe they're more stable. They're more comfortable with what they're doing. There are a lot of things that we can convey.
appraisal may not be an issue either. Then, if we're putting plenty of cash down,
Say that again.
appraisal won't be as big of an issue if it's off. When you
That's right, because we possibly have more room to play with, and we can be more creative with the loan.
I think that's good.
Issues. All right, so that's good. So what are some other things that we can perceive? Let's go the opposite way with this. What can we perceive if the offer is, if the down payment's lower? Alan, what's the obvious on a down payment that's lower? What might we assume?
Well, you might be getting an FHA loan with 3.5% down.
That's
good.
good.
And sometimes an FHA loan doing what it should do to help somebody buy a home that maybe couldn't otherwise. At the same time, if you get a conventional offer, it's going to look a little stronger, like Brent just said, and it's your job to take care of your seller. So you present both, but you give the features and benefits and the advantages of all the loans.
So Alan said something that's really near and dear to my heart, because some people get confused at this point when we're talking about negotiations. There's a terrible myth out there that when somebody sees an FHA note, especially someone who's traditional, and when I say traditional, that's a polite way of saying someone who's sold a lot of houses and has, probably been on this earth for a long time, and they've seen the process evolve over time. A lot of those people that did home sales in the 80s, and I'm talking about the general public, not agents, a lot of them were raised in the fact that the FHA loan, in its original sense, was a first-time home buyer loan. It had certain requirements. The seller had to pay certain things. Only certain people were qualified for an FHA loan. Sometimes it was harder for the seller because they were paying more out. None of that is true anymore. An FHA loan really is no different than most of the other loans out there, with the exception that the debt ratio is a little bit more forgiving. So it allows more people that have a little bit of debt, but they still have good credit and make a decent amount of money. It allows them to buy a house. So what I loved about the way you described that, way too many people sometimes say, oh, they're going to FHA. I'm like, so? I go, FHA is still a very strong way to get a home. You talk about housing being the American dream. It isn't, always will be the American dream to own a house. One of the greatest things about the FHA note is the FHA note says that if you have good credit history, you make a decent amount of money, you don't have any missed payments or anything like that, just because you have a significant amount of debt like a lot of this country does, that doesn't mean you should be prohibited from being able to purchase a home. And that's one of the most brilliant, most American things about the FHA note. I'm going to tell something else to everybody out there. If you don't know this, the FHA note is the #1 way most Americans purchase a home. So it's very hard when someone goes, oh, it's FHA. I love the way Alan described it that way. The FHA note is actually something that is a very positive way for someone to purchase a home. I have to tell you, on a personal note right now, it is a tad upsetting to me to see the bigger banks adjusting their requirements to where they're like, well, no, now you need to have 20% down. I'm like, that's the most un-American thing you can do. I don't care what anybody says. If you want to get on the show and argue with me on it, then let's go. You can argue. Well, that's why we're in we have such housing crisis like we don't have right now. But when we get in a housing crisis, a lot of people will always say, well, that's because they didn't put enough money into it. I'm like, that's not true. There are plenty of people that do just fine on FHA notes. It's irresponsibility that gets somebody in trouble most of the time. We're not talking about that. We're talking about someone that didn't have as much cash as you. Maybe they're younger. It's fine. That's another hypocritical point to make too. I like it when someone who's been doing business for a while and they're more wealthy than someone who's younger. But the one person who's the person who's younger, their income potential is probably 10 times higher than the person who's bitching about them being on an FHA note. Pull your hypocrisy back just a little bit. It depends on where you're at in your life. So Alan,
banking hasn't changed over the years. People that work at banks love people. Banks hate people, love money. It's always going to be that way. And it's how you negotiate with the people that love the people and how you get the bank to love your money. That's the way it is.
Let me tell you, and I got banking friends that watch the show and I love them. And I do think some banks are different, but what he said just then, it's true. I don't care what you say. You ever watch It's a Wonderful Life? There's still some truth to that. There's still some truth.
You mean watch TV? Who's watching TV?
Yeah, and I know some people are going to object to that comment, but I'm sorry. There's a lot of truth to that. This stuff, true. And I'm not naming them. You already know them. You can go look at the media and find them. But I'm telling you, those banks that have pulled that stunt right now, let me tell you something. You're not getting a dime of my money. You're not getting one dime of my money for pulling stunts like that. I don't care who you say you're protecting. That's terrible. That's a terrible. If someone in this country has good credit, they have a decent job, and their history is fine, just because they don't have a ton of money and they have a little bit more debt out there, that is not a reason to deny somebody. It's the most un-American thing that we do. Whew, brutal. I get hot on that one.
A little stiffer out there.
Yeah. A little rough on that one. Okay, so you got this thing. We're looking at the down payments. We're looking at the money come through. Yes, truth be told, everything we just said is correct about how we're analyzing those offers. And it's not like we're giving bias towards someone who puts more down. We are making the common sense gesture that they're secure. Deb?
I was going to say, it's not a bias. It's an evaluation. If they're putting more money down, then they have a little bit more skin in the game. Maybe they've managed their finances. It just stacks up differently.
Yeah, I love that comment. That's fantastic.
Yeah, and if there's an issue with the contract going forward, somebody that's going to put 50 or 60 grand down probably does have some money to deal with issues that you come across during the contract.
Yeah, Brent made a good comment that's very it's very true and neutral. As far as the higher down payment, the truth is the higher down payment, if there is an appraisal issue, that is one thing that someone who does have good credit but has a little bit of debt and doesn't have as much, they can't cover for it. And that's a fact. So if you want to be real, and our job is to protect the seller, if we're talking about this from the seller side, that's a true statement. The conventional note with the higher down payment might be just a tad safe.
And for a new person that's in real estate, one of the hardest things to learn is, and that's why it's good you can talk to Robert if you're on the team. It's at the very end when things go astray on an FHA loan, it doesn't appraise. Now you have to negotiate. Well, seller, they got their own, they represent the seller in their best interest. Well, you might represent the buyer in their best interest. The buyer holds, they can walk.
Right.
And a seller really can't walk, but they cannot budge. Therefore, they make the people walk. So generally we can get that done. We can negotiate the answer. We can get the deal done. But I remember being new, and when you're new and that happens, you're like, oh my God, I just worked 30 days. I'm not going to get anything. What you kind of think of. But that can happen. Yeah.
Not fun at all.
No.
Yeah. There's something glorifying about going through and analyzing and what's right and what's wrong about purchasing a house and who has a better chance at having a house in multiple offers. There's just something rewarding about it. The fact that almost everybody who has the standards that we just talked about can purchase a house if they want to. They can. But as you're new and you're coming onto it, it is tougher to understand. You go through these things and be able to piece together what's the right way to go. All right. Anything else on down payment before we because we can talk a long time about down payment. I guess the only other comment I'll make about it is, of course, you have the VA notes where you can do a 0% down or 100% financing. That's one thing you also got to be careful too on the analysis side. When you're analyzing, saying, well, they're going VA. VA is different than FHA. VA is not, they're not doing it because they get 0 down. VA is doing it because that's a program that was set to benefit the veterans of this country, so that it makes it easier that they've served this country in one capacity or another, that they should be able to be moved up to the front of the line quicker, which is a right that they absolutely deserve. So, when you're analyzing the fact that VA has a weaker down payment, remember, the VA note is guaranteed by the United States government, or at least 25% of it is. Most banks know that if they're going to give a VA note back, they're good. So they're encouraged to lend to vendors. So any veteran out there, that's what's awesome about that program. If you never have understood that, that's what the VA note does. The United States government tells every bank out there, that's a veteran of our country, we're backing that note up for 25%. And the mentality behind that is, if the vet ever does have to default, the bank knows that in most normal markets, even if they have to foreclose, the fact that they're getting 25% guaranteed, they know they can get their money back. So it encourages them to lend to the veterans of this country.
And no matter what offers we get on a house, I've done many deals with VA loans. I've done many deals with FHA loans that have had no problems whatsoever. So it's just a matter of working with what you've got.
Yeah, and I have to say, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I'm a tad biased towards the veteran, and they've done a lot for everything that we do and everything that we interact. There's just a little bit of me when it's a close call, I kind of might nudge the other way. I would hope that most people don't disagree with that type of logic, because those guys do a lot for us. And when I say guys, I mean guys and gals, by the way. Those guys do a ton for us. So for me, I would almost argue that it's an advantage on, if you're doing analysis. And I will tell you, and I tell the sellers that a lot of sellers are very empathetic towards the veteran.
The Welcome Home radio show we do on Wednesdays. Yeah. Blair is a DD 214 lender.
Yeah.
And that, I can imagine about 50-60% of his business is veterans,
Yeah.
So he's disabled himself.
Yes.
And so, I had a guy from San Diego move here, a disabled Army guy. They were starting to tax his bullets, and he couldn't get his guns, and he wanted to move to Texas. And he got here, and by golly, they don't pay state property tax if you're a disabled veteran. In California,
100% disabled.
So it's a nice thing right there.
And you bring up another point too. The partners and vendors. Welcome Home Radio is a sister show to this show. You need to have someone who specializes. Not all lenders specialize in. So if you're going certain routes, you have to have people who specialize in those areas. So that's a good point to make too. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about. We'll kind of blend the down payment into the finance section. So we've been mentioning the down payment, how we analyze it. Now we're going to look at the financing. There are 3 types of traditional financing in the United States. You have the VA note that we've been mentioning, the FHA note, and the conventional note. The first 2 are interesting because they're government backed. The government insures the FHA note. Now, a lot of people celebrate because they're like, that's so nice that the government's doing that. They ain't doing it for you, right? They're insuring themselves. The government, when they issue an FHA note, they will make you pay a mortgage insurance premium on that note. And basically what they're doing is they're taking a percentage of your monthly payment, and they're basically hedging their bets that if you foreclose, they have to foreclose on you, they will be covered because you've been paying for their policy. Now they're giving you an advantage in the fact they're being flexible with giving you money up front because of their more lenient debt ratios. But in the end, you're paying for their insurance policy. It's almost like you're paying for your own demise. You're almost paying for your own demise when you're paying insurance premium because you're basically.
But they are taking a little bit of risk on your behalf. When my husband and I bought our first house 30 years ago, we were, I mean, it was FHA all the way, and we were there, just there by our fingernails. But
Yeah.
it got us started in home ownership, and it's a great way to get into a house.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
I will anytime. That's why I loved Alan's initial statement. I love how you're backing it up too. Anybody who gives a raw face to FHA, I'm like, go easy. I go, that means you don't understand what the FHA does,
Well, and there's a lot of people who follow Dave Ramsey advice, and he's very strong on 20%.
Yeah.
But I've had young people looking for their first house saying, we're working on our 20%. I'm no. Put 3.5 down. Let's get an FHA loan. Let's get you into a house so you're not paying rent.
I really would like to talk to Dave Ramsey personally. Well, I know a lot of people do, but I'm talking about on a very professional level. Yeah. In fact, I want to note that down. I'd like to talk to him on his show one time. I love Dave Ramsey. I'm a huge Dave Ramsey. David, he has to be the most financially responsible person on the face of this earth. But he does, in my opinion, go just a tad too far on the 20%. He knows that most of this country couldn't come close to that. And here's my thing with Dave. And I would love to hear his response to it. And I mean this very professionally, because I like the guy a lot. I'd be like, Dave, if they can't do 20% and they can't purchase, guess what that means they have to do? They have to rent. And as well as I do, that's like the worst thing.
Well, Dave, he owns like 2,400 rental homes.
I was fixing to say that too.
It's the only thing I've ever disagreed with him on. I'm like, you're basically, you say that that's bad, but then you have them too. So which one is it? Is it? And I love him. Don't get me wrong. I really would like to be on his show one time and talk about that, because I get where he's coming from. And I'm a big believer in him. I'm like, you can't cut the FHA guys out. Right. Dave also goes pretty far on the car issue. Dave will talk about.
I'm not a follower on that.
I don't know about that, Dave. That's kind of. I do agree with him not going out and buying some luxury car and wasting a ton of money. But, it is interesting on his go buy a junker. I have to admit, maybe if I was younger, maybe I would do that. Maybe I would have bought a crappier car.
We've been there because we were broke. And I don't drive junkers. I drive nice. I don't mind driving a nice used car, but if it starts threatening to leave me stranded, it's dead.
That's where I also disagree with him. I'm like, it's got to work, man. It's got to work. So I love the guy. I love that we brought him into that conversation, because I think very highly of him. But you're right.
That's what I drive. That ain't no junker car, baby.
That's great.
That ain't no junker.
It's such an awesome car.
Paid $2,300 cash for that in '78.
I love it.
But back to Dave Ramsey, you got to remember, we're here, and when you read the stats, that 80% of America doesn't have $20,000 in savings.
That's true.
So then you got to realize, right? I'm being genuine because generous because I don't know the exact figure. But the people he's talking to, a lot of them don't have a lot of money. Right. I mean, I think the misconception is people that listen to Dave Ramsey are, we've been working 12 years and have 50 grand put away and kids through college or whatever, and it's
most of them need those boundaries.
And that's why they don't have the money in the first place.
Right.
They need the boundaries. That's a perfect point, Deb.
I still think that's why he's one of the most preferential or most important radio shows out there right now. Is he does offer a lot of value. There are a lot of shows you listen to and you're just like, God, why the hell did I waste that time? And again, I pride myself on this show. I am an expert in real estate. I do know if you watch this show, you are pulling information away that's useful. If this show is on a massive, major scale, there would be a lot of people that are like, hey, look, that was really important information today. And that's why I like him a lot too, because I love how y'all mentioned the stuff about the younger folks are watching him. I think that's great. One of the worst parts about this country is the fiscal irresponsibility of most Americans, so he's trying to preach against that. He goes a little too far sometimes, but hey, he's still great.
He's very, just like a good real estate agent, though, he's steady and consistent.
Yeah.
And that's what you want. I don't care if you run a lumber yard, you're a realtor, or you're a financial advisor. You want somebody that'll say what say what they mean. If they say it correctly, they're going to be successful because they know what they're talking about and they're still around. So that's what you want in a realtor too.
Right, exactly. And my producer right now is like, why the hell are y'all talking about Dave Ramsey? Probably.
Tell him to go plow his driveway.
Well, Mark, one of the great things about the producer and the owner of this particular media company is that he's so genuine. He's the first one to agree, even with people on a different media stage. He'd be like, yeah, the guy does offer, a significant plus to a lot of people out there. Okay.
Robert, I want to say hi. A buddy of mine, Jim Heaton, just
Jim
tuned in on Facebook. If you need a limo driver, he is the best in the business.
Hey, I like that. Jim, honestly, that's great. Jim, if you want to throw your information out there, we'll press that to everybody out and tell them.
He drives the big ones, man. He drives a lot of big NFL football stars. And
all right, so Jim's in the limo business. Jim's got to be happy right now. I saw that, not the Jim's with Uber, but the same mentality with the limo. I saw that Uber's getting back into now. They've got the mask on. They're moving forward, which that's good. There's no reason. Transportation has to move on. So that's great, Jim. Thanks for being on. Honestly, put your info out there if you want. And we have about anywhere from 400 to 500 people that watch on archive. So that'll get out there. So feel free to do that. Great to have you on the show are watching the show as well. Okay, so let's get to where we add. So we talked about FHA and VA. So the conventional, I love the definition of conventional note. It's neither VA or FHA. So if you don't have the government back, you're going conventional. That's a fact, by the way. The definition in the real estate books, that's exactly what it says. So if you're not going one of those routes, you're going conventional. A little tip for everybody out there: most refis go conventional. Very few refis go back to an FHA or a VA note. So you're going to go, if you're going to refi, millions of Americans are refiing right now, which is good advice. There's nothing wrong with refining your house. The fact that you're almost probably an irresponsible thing if you're not doing it and you're at a set rate right now, a higher rate. So conventional, most conventionals, a minimum is 5%. There are some a little bit lower, but most conventionals are 5%. If you were talking about a investment property or land purchases, those are always going to be significantly higher. You're going to probably be talking about 20 to 25%. Some might be at 10%, but they're harder to find, especially right now. So a little brief conversation about finance. All right, so we add those two up and we get to our offer amount. Okay, so we get to our offer amount, and now we're trying to say, is this competitive? So this whole show is about negotiating. Okay, about negotiating. I told you it kind of parallels when we do contracts, because we're actually going through the contract right now, but this is a different way. If you watched our contract show before, this is not the same. This is not the way we do this one. So now I'm telling you, we have people out there that do a few things with us when they tell us they want to put an offer. So I'm going to give you a good takeaway. This is especially a good part of the show that if you have this type of client, you want them to watch the show and say, look, these people over here have been doing this a long time. Listen to them, okay? Listen to what they say. We have a lot of clients that like to tell us when they're putting an offer in, they want to use what we call the shoot for the moon routine. Let's just do the shotgun approach. Let's just push as hard as we can. The worst they can say is say no. That is not true.
Amen.
The worst is not that they can say no. The worst is they can say, tell that person to go to hell
we will never entertain an offer again.
Never come back. I will not let them back on my property, and I'll consider them trespassing. I've heard all of these.
Yeah.
I've heard all of these. Okay. Actually, Alan, I just thought about this. So me and Alan met. He actually purchased one of the houses that one of my longtime friends, who's no longer with us, love Jim, great guy. Alan bought his house. So Jim used to be of the opinion he would, when he was going through, he'd be like, well, just let's count it. And he didn't do this with Alan, by the way, because Alan was like his third or fourth. He had irritated the other people. So I had to tell him, I go, you can't be like that during negotiations. Well, Jim was the opposite. He's like, well, don't give them anything. They'll buy it one way. I'm like, Jim, it doesn't work like that. I go, at some point, you have to be more forthcoming in these things. You can't just sit there and say, I'm going to do this, and that's going to be the way it goes. Or I guess you can and just not be successful. So it was we were talking about this, and I started thinking about Jim was a good example years ago about someone who did that. But you have these buyers who say,
I'd have paid more.
That is a good house. I always remember that. You know, it's funny. This is a great example too. I've sold so many houses over the years. Alan, what's it been now? Is it past 10 years on that house?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's 12, 13. Yeah.
So I've never been over because Alan doesn't invite me over to his house. He would say the same about me. But I can still remember that he has a horseshoe backyard. So he has a backyard that he has a patio and you have the 2 rooms out here, and it's a small backyard, right? There's a small fence back there. But it's funny how you remember when you talk. I mean, I've probably gone through 4,000 houses, and I still remember that Alan's house, and I haven't been in there in 12
Well,
years.
it's a 1-story all brick and flower mound,
Yeah.
so it's hard to get them.
I remember that. So
Yeah.
we go back to, you have these clients that say, let's say the house is listed at 300. They're like, lowball them, offer them at 240. Y'all, that is not a strategy that works anymore. Okay. Now, this is I'll put an asterisk in this conversation. This is for, if it's an investor, sure, go ahead. That's a different purchase. That's a business purchase. Fine. This isn't a business purchase. We're talking about residential home where people are living. They're going to be, you can't do that. Okay.
Right.
Anybody that's out there that's listening to me, any agent that's having problems with a buyer who's doing that, you cannot do that. There's 2 reasons why. One, the one we already stated, that it actually could backfire on you. It actually could backfire where they're like, no, you're not getting a second chance. And 2, even if it doesn't backfire or it doesn't, where they ban you, and those of you think we're joking, we're not joking. We have had sellers go, you tell that person just forget it, they're out. And so that does happen. Those of you who say that the worst they can say is no is completely wrong. Believe me, they can say a lot worse than no. But then the second part is just as bad. Is they're like, oh, I'll offer with you, or I'll negotiate with you, but I'm not going to negotiate near as lenient. Whereas I was going to give you 10,000 off now, you can forget that.
Well, I think you got to always remember, the obvious. The seller is the owner of the house, total in charge of the whole thing.
Right.
The buyer's not in charge. The realtors are not in charge. It's Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner who sit down at night in their living room and go, nope, okay.
They're the real boss.
Therein lies part of the negotiation. Everybody's had their buyers write a letter. Everybody's entertained letters when they're selling a house. And, it doesn't work with everybody, but some people are very sincere about a letter and about, I'd like a young family moving in here. And, but a seller is the boss, period.
So that's a takeaway from the show. So let's talk about that. We have a lot of people that say, and especially in a competitive market, should we send a personal letter? And Alan said it perfectly. Some people go for it. Some people don't.
Right.
I'm one of those people, like, it doesn't matter to me, but there are a lot of clients we have that I assure you, the number one reason they went with that buyer was because of the letter. They touched them
Absolutely.
one way or another. I don't believe
Yep.
that, but it's true. It's a fact. So that's a good takeaway. When you're talking about negotiations, I will be of the opinion, even though I don't care, I'm telling you, sometimes it helps. I don't care what anybody says. I know it for a fact. So great point. Great takeaway from the show.
I would say if you still have an obligation to a buyer to present that offer, even if you advise them that this is a terrible offer, you still have to present it. And it's usually a phone call to the listing agent instead of
you can't just refuse the offers, right? A lot of listing agents are like, I'm not even going to present that. You don't have a choice. You have to. You have to present it. That's not our decision. We have to present those offers. So that's the problem.
That's actually what I tell my sellers when I'm about to present them a lowball offer. Is I'm required to make sure you see this offer. You don't have to accept it.
I'll give you another takeaway. And again, this is one of my favorites. This is actually one of my favorite shows that we haven't done in a long time, which is, I was really irritated by that, especially doing it now because there's so many takeaways. Here's a great takeaway for everybody on the show right now, for existing, new, veteran agents. I'm going to tell you right now, this is the truest comment I ever had way back when. Any lowball offer is better than no offer.
Absolutely.
That's someone who at least said, I have some interest in this house. I used to love a seller that would get so upset.
Yeah.
We've been sitting on the market for 4 months with nothing. And they're like, oh, this is ridiculous. I'm like, what? That they're the first ones that even attempted?
And then they say, we're too far apart. I won't even counter. And I don't ever, we counter all the time.
And I'm a fan of that. I teach that. I don't like let's just not go back at all. There are some people that say that's successful. I'm like, I don't think so. I find that combative. I find it combative when you tell someone I'm not even going to do that. I'm like,
Right.
just throw a number out. How hard was it to say, I don't even care if you say full price?
Right.
Well, actually, that reminds me of another one, another gym story, Alan. Jim had, this is actually the best gym story ever. On that house, Jim had someone who, actually I was about to say the price of your house. I'm not going to do that. So Jim had X amount. The house was listed at this. And someone came in $100K lower. Okay. Now, if you know Jim's a great guy. I miss him so much. He's such a good friend of mine. He had such a way about him. So Jim, you'd think he's all irritated and just so mad because he did have a temper. He could be a little bit upset. When I told him, like Deb was talking about, I was kind of worried about it. I really didn't want to tell him this offer. So I'm really expecting him to go just off the hinges. So that's not what he does. This is the only client I've ever had do this. It was so great. He goes, the offer was 100K below. Jim comes back. He goes, that's not a problem. He goes, I want to counter. I go, really? I was excited for him he's like, oh, I absolutely want to counter. So he comes back and he goes, counter this. And now he said the straight amount, but again, since I'm not disclosing the price, the price was 10K over the list.
Perfect.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a good, I think that happens a lot when you get a low ball.
Yeah.
People do want to, fire, it's like two battleships fighting at each other over the bow. And
I tend to think of it as tennis, and a response, a counter like that is like a slam. Yeah.
Funny you said that. For anybody who's watching, Deb doesn't know who Jim is. Jim is a longtime family friend that was an outstanding tennis player. That's how we know him. So that's interesting that you said.
He stayed here during the inspection, and that's when I got to really know him. And he's like following everybody around. I'm like, dude, I said, why don't I hired this guy? He's inspecting. We'll get to you. Oh, I don't mean to bother you. I mean, did you see how clean the carpet was? We're cleaning the carpet up. And I said, that's great. We already made our offer. You accepted it. I'm a realtor. We've been through this and, blah, blah, blah. And he's like following the inspector guy around. It was hilarious.
Anybody who watched it, it's funny, since we talked about Jim Dakin, so dear to me. I'm going to make sure I tell his family that we talked about it today because he's so dear. He's his persona was so big. And, Alan, what he's saying, that was Jim. That's how he was. But we're talking about Jim, not so much for just the person that he was, but he is a very good negotiating example. He is the only client I've ever had that did that. And to this day, it's still the most brilliant response back to someone who lowballed. So Jim, God bless you, brother. I miss you so much. And
he left a nice bottle of wine on her counter.
Today,
He left a nice big bottle of wine on her counter when we walked in.
He
was a big wine drinker.
He was always like that. That's just the way he was. God, I miss him so
Good
much.
Guy.
Great. I love the fact that he came up, but for the negotiation standpoint, that still to this day is one of the best responses ever. So I loved it that you can't just go out there and shoot an offer at somebody. It can hurt you. And I really think the second part of what we're talking about, the fact that it can hurt what they would have given to you anyways. I'm just not a fan of it. There is an etiquette, an unknown or unforeseen etiquette as to how you offer on a house. And we're not.
I have a quick question. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
And I might direct this at Brent. I know you do some higher end stuff. How does that, I don't do much above 700,000 or 800,000 generally, but when people get up into the millions, what does that look like when somebody makes what is a low ball, I guess, when it's.
Well, okay, so let's say it's a $3 million house. You could put an offer 200,000 under, and that's not insulting. You go 2 million.
Yeah. So thank you, Alan, for asking him that. I want to point out before Brent continues to answer that thank you for bringing that up because it's important to acknowledge. I did not distinguish the difference.
I thought it was relative.
No, thank you. We're talking about mid-range homes here. On a house like that, just like Brent just said, that's not a low ball. I mean, honestly, even on a 1.5 million, there are some that would consider 300K
Yeah.
a low ball, right, Brent? I mean,
Yeah, I've seen it unless it's grossly overpriced. I think one thing that people need to be aware of is keep emotion out of both sides, right? So if you talk to your buyers and sellers before, especially your sellers, keep your emotion out of it. I had a listing one time and an offer came in 30K under, which was quite a big low ball.
yeah.
And I talked to them before and I said, we're just going to refuse the offer. You know, we just say, no, thanks. That's fine. But we didn't get angry. And the buyer came back and said, okay, we'll pay full price. Like, it was nuts.
So that's happened to me many times too. I've had some where they have pulled that stunt back, and I tell the seller, I'm like, hey, I've seen it many times where this person comes back and says they were just trying to see.
Yep.
For them, that's fine.
Yep.
I don't encourage that strategy, but to each their own. But don't get all hot at this person, you know.
And when we got in trouble not too long ago, a couple of years ago, and you get 10 offers for a house, appraisals were not where offers were.
Right.
And when you were talking about an FHA, every now and then you would get an FHA that would get it as opposed to a cash or conventional. Again, there are reasons that happens, but my goodness, we had appraisals that were $20,000 or $30,000 off.
Yeah.
And it can happen. It depends on the market. If the market's booming and you get multiple offers, appraisal and how you handle them are totally different. And what might be a low ball in this situation, you can have a high ball. Literally.
It's funny. The show is designed for negotiations, and I've loved the conversation so far. We really, now that we've gone through, we're almost done with the show today. This show really could have been titled, feelings, and not, how you're responding, keeping your personal out of it, because that really is the summary of today's show.
The whole reason we do agents is to help tone down that
You don't have it personal.
that emotion, and my job as an agent is to be the calm in the middle of the storm.
Yeah.
For my clients.
There's no doubt one of the most difficult parts of real estate is dealing with the general public, because we tell them, look, you can't be personal, but that's all they are.
Sure.
That's all they are is personal.
Well, they raise their family there,
We're
and
not faulted, right?
they got 2 dogs buried in the backyard. I mean, there's a lot going on.
We're not going to fault them for it, but yeah, right. We're there to tell them, hey, that's why I'm here.
Yeah.
I'm the one that's not supposed to really be worried about that. I'm here to tell you what the value is and what you need to do to get this done. That's
To
the
keep
hardest
you
part.
legal, but to keep you sane as well.
Yeah, it's the hardest part about real estate, to really keep composure with everybody out there. All right, but before we head on, I want to make sure I thank our sponsor one more time again. Once again, Martin Cooley with BPG Inspections, 817-401-3240. Again, that's 817-401-3240. You can see that on the ticker down there. Martin's an exceptional inspector, a home inspector for our team. Again, we always throw out a lot of vendor names out there, but he is our preferred choice for the amount of work he's done. So for agents out there, definitely someone you should give a shout if you're looking for a really good inspector. Believe me, I have a lot of people that work on my team, a lot of inspections through the years. He by far is the best one that I've had in all that time frame. So look, I want to thank everybody out there. We don't have the scripted shows. We don't know where they go, where they take us, but I like where today went. And this is going to continually be every other 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to go through negotiations just so that everybody knows out there. We got through number 3 on the contract as far as negotiations go. And I fully was aware. I only had 2 other circles below that. I knew that that's how it'd be, and that's fine by me, because that's what makes the show ongoing and gives us more information because we never have enough time. So I want to thank everybody that was watching. This is a good show today. I mean, I think all of them are good. This one's a really good one for today. There's a lot of takeaways. These are not things you learn out of the book. This is very helpful for the general public. So for everybody out there, especially those that watch on archive, you will see my post pushed through on different forums, depending on what part of the state that you're in or the country. Make sure you comment if there's something you want to see. There's information you want us to talk about. I want to thank Jim Heaton, too, for watching today. Alan's buddy out there. I always appreciate anybody that comes on. We don't mind promoting anybody out there with their businesses. If Alan knows Jim and he says he's a good guy, believe me, he's a good guy then. He's with ECS Nationwide Transportation. So
he's a great guy.
Jim. Not related to our real estate industry near as Martin is, because Martin actually does a lot of business with us, but Jim, we want you to know that that's great that Alan thinks to be out there, and anybody's in the limo business, that's probably a good thing for you guys as well. All right. Hey, thanks to all my co-hosts. Appreciate you guys taking the hour today. Thanks for everything. Guys, a much better positive feeling right now. I really think we're heading in the right direction with everything. Everybody stay safe out there. Start embracing what it is that we're doing, our new world, our new concept. It's not a bad thing. Life rolls on. Let's go ahead and roll with it. You guys have a good one. We'll talk to y'all soon. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.